And what's the
Yes.
fallout for them?
That one's tougher because they hinge so much of their hopes on this upcoming free agency class that has dwindled and dwindled and dwindled.
I
And I
still
just
my favorite thing to think about is Giannis waiting on purpose for free agency to play out last year before signing his extension so that it messed with the futures of all the teams that were waiting on him.
I 100% could buy that. But yeah, I mean, Miami feels like it's stuck waiting until a superstar is legitimately available via trade. Whether that's Karl Anthony Towns, as weird of a combination as he and Bam Adebayo would be, or the classic Bradley Beal example, or some unknown player who hasn't yet asked for a trade but might. But it doesn't feel like they have any paths other than that because they're not going to have much draft capital. This free agency class is garbage relative to previous ones, and this roster just isn't going to work. I mean, I think we're now realizing just how accurate Jason Tatum's comment about some players like Tyler Herro being products of the bubble environment and not necessarily playing like this on a more regular basis. This guard rotation is a mess. Goran Dragic is not himself anymore. He's not going to be himself given the advanced nature of his age. Tyler Herro is not going to be a star. Kendrick Nunn is not going to be a star. And that is a significant problem when you have Jimmy Butler, who, as great as he is as a go-to scorer, that's not his natural role. Bam Adebayo is not a go-to scorer. And that just necessitates even stronger guard play that they don't have and they don't have a path to.
Yes, everything you said 100 times over, yes. They are what they're saving grace. I don't know how much cap space will matter this summer because of how you pointed out, but they have a path to, getting more than 20 million in cap space while still carrying holds for Duncan Robinson. I would renounce, maybe you don't renounce Kendrick Nunn, but I just don't know what his material value is to this team long
So
term.
are you going after like Rashawn Holmes? Like, what's the play with that max money?
Yeah,
I worry that that's
first of
going
all,
to mess them up even more because they're going to overpay someone.
it's not going to be max money because of it's just not. It's barely over 20 million. Giving Bam the extension kind of took them out of the Giannis sweepstakes. You would always figure out a way to get them. Make that clear. It would have
Right.
been a sign and trade or something, but they're not going to have max money. I think the reason you spend on someone this year is just because you can't afterwards. Because I'm assuming they're not going to let Duncan Robinson walk, and I'm assuming Duncan Robinson gets more than Davis Bertans did.
Probably.
So maybe they'll be in the Kawhi mix. They'll probably be in the Kyle Lowry mix. You spend that money just because it's not going to be available to you if you're planning on keeping Duncan Robinson. The one thing I want to push back on, and Tyler Hero's been underwhelming this year, to put it kindly, verging, and he's been bad in this series. I don't understand why people can't look past the report that the Heat wouldn't give him up in a James Harden trade, because the jokes are funny, but I'm starting to see that people really believe that that was a real stance, when I think what was happening, and pretty clearly, by the way, there were so many other moving parts that the Heat couldn't get to. Yes, they could figure out the salary matching because of those contracts for Dragic and Andre Iguodala. They had Olynyk at the time too. They figured out a way to get Oladipo's money there. So there would have been a way to do that, but they just didn't have the pick equity to beat out Philly's offer or what turned out to be the Nets offer. Do you think that Houston would have done whatever Miami could have offered? They would have had to move some stuff around for picks. You're probably looking at 2 firsts and Tyler Herro, plus salary filler, and maybe Precious Achua, whatever. Are they doing that deal over what Philly had on the table, which was Ben Simmons and mystery box after that, or what they got from the Knicks? No. And so if you're the Heat, you might as well just put the idea to bed and say you're not going to include Tyler Herro so that it doesn't have him.
Right. And it could be
head.
a leverage play as well. Like if you think that you're close, then you could be trying to make them cave a little bit because there's always that leverage song and dance in play.
And
so I don't really buy that narrative at all.
I think had they had the assets to actually get Harden, because I think they know that Tyler Herro wasn't going to get him, even if you did view him as the second coming of Devin Booker, as the comp that I've seen, which I never really saw it. But anyway, let's say Houston assumed that that's what he was. That's not getting you James Harden alone. They just didn't have the other moving parts. And so that is the second thing I wanted to cover there. But I do think there will be fallout in Miami in the form of, I think that they will be aggressive in free agency with Kyle Lowry. Maybe they even try and get meetings with Chris Paul if he opts out. They'll definitely try and be in on Kawhi if he opts out. They'll probably spend the money smaller scale too. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe try and chase more trades with Tyler Herro being more widely available. His value has obviously cratered though.
here's the thing. Ultimately, Miami is about to be swept out of the playoffs. Maybe they win one game and then go down in 5 games. They don't have many pathways to improvement unless a star becomes available and they really favor whatever offer is thrown out there by Pat Riley and the Heat. And if you look up and down this roster, the only people I see who I think have even a remote chance of making an all-star team are Bam Adebayo and a soon-to-be 32-year-old Jimmy Butler. I don't think there's anyone else on the roster that has all-star upside.
I would agree with you there.
That's a huge issue. Like, I think the Heat are just stuck. And maybe it's weird to say about a team that just made the finals a year ago, but that was also strange circumstances, benefiting from some fortuitous happenings, didn't go well in the finals, and we've seen the fallout now. And I don't see, like, even with the Clippers, I think you can piece together a path to something better. I don't
As
even know where
currently
to
constructed,
start.
you mean, right?
Yeah, I don't even know where to start with Miami.
Are you stuck when you have Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, and cap space?
Were you? I think so.
You're stuck if you want to get a third star. You're not stuck if you want to.
I really hate the mentality that every team should be championship or bust. I think the teams that make the playoffs after years of struggles should be able to celebrate those accomplishments. I think that the idea that rings are the only things that really matter and that every team should either be the worst team in the league or a true championship contender, I think those ideas are corrosive to the overall quality of the league and do not reflect well on what we as a society value. But the Heat are still stuck in that upper tier of mediocrity for the time being, I think. And like, if that's okay with you, great. Like, let's celebrate those teams that are consistently good and don't want to tear it down, which is also not to discredit those who do want to tear it down. But no matter what philosophy the Heat organization adheres to, I just don't see the path forward. And that's something I don't think you can say about any other team, where it's like, if they want to be rebuilders, I don't know what they do. Because you're still like, are you getting that much for Jimmy Butler at this stage of his career? Enough to facilitate a true teardown? I don't think so.
Well, I was going to say it does get interesting because he turns 32 in September and will be a free agent after next year if he declines his player option, which I imagine he will. I still don't think they're stuck, but I get your overarching point. That definitely makes sense. They're clearly not at the level that we thought they were in the bubble. I do think a lot of this is a testament to Milwaukee. It's just a lot different. And having Drew Holiday stretches, also a mistake for Miami. You should have brought Jay Crowder back. You could have, if you needed the space later. I'm a very big advocate of get the space later when you need it. Jay Crowder would have been monstrous for this team. They're just stretched so thin on defense now. That's not to say, though, had they gone up against Philly, had they gone up against someone else in the first round, Atlanta, New York, that they still wouldn't have necessarily gotten beat. But I don't think they're that stuck because you think Bam Adebayo can be a top 10 player. There's a chance that
100% think that.
There's a chance that he and Jimmy Butler's windows align to the point where they're both top 15 players next year. You're not stuck when you have that and cap space and Duncan Robinson. I am very interested to see what happens with him because you have to have a little bit. I don't think anything that he's done. He shot a little worse this year, but it was still over 40%, and the level of difficulty on his attempts is wild. And defenses are more keyed in on him now that they know what's going on with Duncan Robinson. I think he probably gets between 15 and 18 million a year.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
And if the Heat don't pay that, that's when we start thinking, okay, well, what's going on here? There feels like there's something more at play. But I do agree with you. The path forward now is because the question of what do you do now, I think is harder than ever. But I think there are options on the table. If they wanted to tear it down, they could. If they want to make a minor swing, Tyler Herro, and then you have the Goran deal, you have Andre Iguodala's team option too. I don't know who you can get with that, even if you're attaching a very distant first-round pick.
I wouldn't be too surprised to see Kemba in a Heat jersey next year.
But that's the thing. That might be the play. And that's not, they could do that.
Is that a push this team over the top move, though?
If Kemba's Kemba? Yes.
Kemba's 31 and has been on the decline for a little bit and has a long history of knee injuries now.
The knee injuries, yes. He was still really good for
He
most
was
of
still really
last year.
good, but that doesn't mean he wasn't declining a
No,
little
no,
bit.
this year he was not great. I'm saying I'm not ready to count him out off of what
I too love Kemba, and I'm very appreciative of you toning down what you were about to say and going with not great. I saw that hesitation in your eyes.
The other thing that they have here is I don't know if he's slated to play next season with his injury, but they still have Victor Oladipo on the books, and is the path forward he gets healthy and hits? It's not a viable path forward, but like
Sure, and maybe they'll finish with the 14th best record next year and get the number 1 pick in the draft. Like, we're throwing out likely scenarios, right?